Good evening and welcome to the April School Board. We'll call this meeting into session. Our first item on the agenda tonight is our favorite one. It's the recognition. And we'll turn it over to Dr. Clendenning and Dr. Worland for our first group.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us this evening. Our stairs are back. If you were with us last month, they disappeared. We are going to start tonight with Harvard Model Congress. I'll tell you a little bit about what it is and then ask our students and our advisors to come forward. Harvard Model Congress is a 4-day conference where over 1,500 students from all over the United States participate in mock government simulations. They're assigned roles in various branches of our government, up to and including the presidential cabinet members, legislators, and members of international organizations such as the United Nations. They're given problems to solve, cases to adjudicate, and real-world issues to ponder. As I call your name, please come forward. Let's begin with our sponsors. Thank you for being with us this evening. I know I saw Angela Kuntz is here with us. Angela, are Chaz or Connor with you this evening? Okay. Thank you for being with us, Angela. The following students won awards for their outstanding performance during the conference. Jaden Crisafulli, Best Delegate in Senate Foreign Relations. Liam Clark, Best Delegate in Senate Agriculture. Morgan Harvey, Honorable Mention in Senate Agriculture. Gavin Fisk, Honorable Mention in Media. Sean Greider, Honorable Mention in Presidential Cabinet. Luke Foraker and Danielle Hensley, Honorable Mention in Supreme Court. Kaylin Mattern, Lindsay Woodward, Allie Lacey, Brady Schmidt, Ashley Bonilla, and Emma Wilson, Honorable Mention in District Court. Now, would the other members of the Harvard Model Congress team please come forward if you're with us this evening? Please join me in giving them a round of applause on their excellent work. Oh, I understand. It's that time of year. Jaden, do you mind if we ask you to share a little bit about the experience, and then we can ask Mrs. Kuntz to share a little bit as well?
So in the last week of February, for about 4 or 5 days, you get on a plane and you go to Boston, and it's really fun. And you you wear business attire to this convention, and you research your role beforehand. So for example, I was a senator, and so I researched my senator's policy positions and his opinions on the issues that mattered in my committee. And then I went there and helped craft legislation to help the American people and people around the world. And even though the legislation doesn't really actually count, but in my heart, I think it counts. And that's about it. Do you guys want to add anything? No? Okay. Mrs. Kuntz, do you want to add anything?
Hello, so this is like my 17th year doing this. Not every time do I fly on the plane, but I really do think this is one of the best things that we have at Franklin Community High School. And the kids just did a great job. This year we had 32 kids, not a bit of problems. We won more awards than we've ever won. So yeah, just great job, great bunch of folks. We also had 2 people from the community that helped us, the lovely Shalise Woods. Right here, and then Jennifer Auger. They helped with our court teams. So, yeah.
Congratulations. We're going to come down here to the middle. We'll get a picture. Here you go. Everybody. Slide in.
Do you want shoes?
gonna shoot. No, I didn't mean to. Don't you worry. I didn't have time to change.
Join me one more time in congratulating our students' excellence. Nice job. Thank you again for our community partners for this experience, and also to our families, as I know it's a commitment sometimes for the whole team. Morgan's not with us this evening, but I'm going to go ahead and announce that we want to congratulate Morgan Harvey. She's one of our seniors. She was named a National Merit Scholarship finalist. She's one of 15,000 finalists across the country. This recognition is one of the highest honors for high school seniors. We wish her luck with the scholarship opportunities. Those will be communicated in the coming months. So just let's send positive vibes to Morgan with a round of applause. Thank you so much. Business Professionals of America. We had some of our high school students participate in the Indiana Business Professionals of America State Leadership Contest in March, and they ranked in the top 8 in most of their events. Their sponsor is Stephanie Woodring. Stephanie, if you would please go ahead and come forward. And the student participants in the state competition were Haley Stewart, Eli Zom, Sydney Woodward, Maggie Woods, and Danielle Hensley. Please join me in congratulating these students on their excellence.
Well, I don't talk because they do presentations for their events, so I let them kind of tell you a little bit about what BPA is and how they got to state, so I'll let our president step up with that.
So BPA stands for Business Professionals of America, so most of the events that we enter in are business related. I personally did economic research. So for example, I researched the economic climate of the Raiders' move to Las Vegas. So usually we compete in a regional event and then we hopefully move on to state. So that's what we did this year. We were able to go to Indianapolis and compete. So I'll let Eli and Haley talk about what they competed in.
Okay. So you go for like 3 days into a hotel and convention center in Indy, and then you have your event, and you compete and present your event to judges during a time slot in a selected room. And then once you get done with that, basically what you can do is you can wander around the area, and there's tests that you can do, that you can take, business tests, and if you place high enough, then you get to get an award during the final award ceremony. And you can also do like these business sessions where a leader comes in and talks to you about how, one of the big things was like SMART goals. So we talked about how like SMART goal making, it will like increase like how successful you are. So yeah.
Me and Eli's group project was broadcasting news production. So we had a news product that we present to the judges, and then my individual project was over community college and how it's beneficial for students.
All right, well, congratulations. And I do have pencils for all of you. And Maggie she's going to have a whole set here in just a second. So, and we can come over here and get a picture, please. And one for the sponsor? Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome.
Great work.
Congratulations. Please join me one more time. Great work. And again, thanks to their family and their support systems. Boys swimming and diving state finals, our last recognition for this evening. The boys swim team competed in the IHSAA Boys Swimming and Diving State Tournament in February. We would like to recognize our competing members and Coach Zach DeWitt. Brady Campbell. Come forward, please. There you go. Alexander Reese. Jacob Meisinger. Franco Chirinos. Isaac Layton. Michael Wilson. There we go. Gabriel Holtz. Congratulations, gentlemen. Job well done.
I compete in the 200 and 500-yard freestyle. I'd also like to thank my parents and my coaches. And it's very fun. I really enjoy it, the competitive aspect of it as well, and being able to do it with your friends. You want to say something?
I competed in the 2 medley relay and the 2 free relay. I'd like to thank all the swim parents because they worked very hard to get us breakfasts in the mornings after some of those morning practices, which I much appreciate.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations again, gentlemen. Thank you all for coming this evening and for supporting our students and their excellence. This is traditionally a good time for people to exit if you are just here for the recognition program. Have a good evening.
All right, see you guys. While we're waiting for the folks to leave the auditorium, I just want to highlight that if you're following the agenda tonight via paper copy, we have 2 additional items in the action items. One is for the public hearing for our HVAC systems at Creekside, and then one is for an HVAC system at Northwood. So just want to let you know that our online agenda is up to date, but the paper copy, we've had 2 additional inputs that we'll add here tonight. So with that, move on to the next agenda item, which is our consent agenda. I'll open it up if anybody has any comments. No comments? No public comments? Anything from the board? Dr. Clendenning?
Nothing.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda passes.
Mr. Lamb, I would like to highlight and thank Coach DeWitt. Mr. DeWitt is going to move on to some other opportunities and leave the teaching side of us, but he's going to continue to coach for us. So we want to thank Coach DeWitt for all he's done and continued successes, but he will be leaving as a Spanish teacher at the end of this school year.
And I guess I can put a plug in for Coach DeWitt that they are in the process of updating the starting blocks in the pool. So if you're interested in helping out with that effort, please contact Coach directly or reach out and we can get you the information that you can help participate in that. All right, we'll move into the superintendent reports. First one is our corporate financial reports.
Okay, a couple of attachments there. The first one will look familiar. This is our first quarter financial statement ending March 31st, which is about 25% into the budget year. If you concentrate on the green lines, on average, we're almost to 19% expended. A couple areas that I'll point out that we will continue to monitor. If you look at the budget column, far left, and the 1700,000 line item, payments to other government units, these are payments typically to C9 and Earlywood, and we've experienced increased cost in that area when the state stopped doing excess cost funding. They kind of start and stopped throughout the year. We think we'll eventually catch up on these things, but that's one of the reasons why you'll see a 31% expended rather than the typical 25%. So we'll continue to monitor that, and Jen is great about getting every dime that we're eligible for from the state. And then if you go down to the 27,000 line item, transportation support services, as you all know, we've seen an increase in fuel costs and staffing and maintenance of buses. So we're running a little ahead in that line item, and may have to dip into the fund balance by the end of the year for that area. But it's also something we're continuing to work on, and Matt and Jeff are doing a process improvement project in this area, so we will continue to try to find efficiencies there. And then another area I'll point out are the 45 and 47 line items. The board decided back in August that we would allocate $1.5 million in fund balance in the referendum fund to safety improvements in the buildings. So those line items are only 9% and 2% expended. So that's skewing the bottom line a little bit, which is why you're only seeing about 19% on average. So Jeff and Matt are also continuing to spend those funds, and you'll see those depleting throughout the year. The next one is just for information. We started adding this to the corporate financial report each quarter, and these are just balances, cash receipts, and expenditures in the ECA accounts for each building. And then the third and fourth, which is the attachment titled Corporation Financial Report 2, are some of my homemade reports. Historically, we have used Forecast 5 to put together pretty graphs of where we are, but I've kind of risen the white flag on that system. I've spent an unreasonable amount of time trying to figure out programming errors and chasing down numbers that couldn't be explained. So I did a handmade Excel graph, not as pretty, but it's also, I think, a little more informative and kind of focuses on the bottom line, which I think the board is really interested in. So the first one are budget results ending March 31st with the education fund, the operations fund, referendum, and debt service. So if you look at education, operations, and referendum, we're between 24 and 25%, which is exactly where we need to be. We haven't made any debt service payments yet. We do that in June and December. So we are about, on average, 19% expended, and then the four graphs below show just a pie graph of where we are in each of those funds. The next report shows our cash flow results and the fund balances in graph form below, both on January 1st of 23 and March 31st of 23. Some of the changes in fund balance, as I discussed before, we allocated $1.5 million in referendum fund balance to safety initiatives. So we forecasted a pretty big decrease in that fund balance at the end of the year. We've also had significant pay raises over the last couple of years to remain competitive. So that will dip into our fund balance a little bit. And then we've also added positions for necessary programming like teaming and alternative ed and behavior support. So all of these things kind of add up to strategically reducing our fund balances in each of those funds by the end of the year. Now, another note is we have not, up until I think the first week in April, we hadn't received any tax allocations for property taxes There was some kind of glitch with the auditor's office, so some of that fund balance is due to that delay in receiving those tax funds. And then in the education fund, also a note, if you recall, we ended up doing a transfer at the beginning of 23 instead of the end of 22. So that's going to skew our fund balances throughout 23 as well. And that was just transferring some of our savings to rainy day. So hopefully this is helpful. Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next item is the audit report.
Okay, so we finally finished our audit and ended up with 3 findings on the federal side and 1 finding on the financial side. Our federal audit report, the auditors didn't agree that we paid for our C9 construction bill out of ESSER funds. However, the IDOE had approved us to do that. So even though it is a finding, I've tried to reach out to different folks that the State Board of Accounts and IDOE to see if we needed to pay those funds back. And nobody seems to be able to answer that. My guess is even though it's been flagged as a finding, the expectation isn't necessarily to refund those funds. So if I hear any differently, I will certainly let the board know, but I think my recommendation would be just to let this go. And
Well, how do we close it? We don't want to leave a finding open.
we've already responded to the finding, so
Okay.
I'm not sure that I would consider it open.
Okay.
There was also an audit finding for the web HVAC project. We were not able to supply documentation that showed we complied with prevailing wage requirements. We kind of left this up to Lancer and Beebe to do on our behalf, and I'm not sure that if they did it, they did not retain the records to prove that they did it. So we will start doing this in-house from now on and making sure that we have the documentation to show the auditors when it comes into play. And then there was also a third finding about a ESSER progress report that we complete each year. This particular one was for year 1. We did not have a review of the submittal of this report. I submitted it. The auditors wanted to see that someone else reviewed it afterwards. So we just submitted year 2 for this report, and I did have the deputy treasurer review and sign off on that. And then on the state side, we had one finding, and that was that a supervisor cannot submit and approve timesheets for their employees. For strong internal controls, the submission needs to be by the employee and then approved by the supervisor. And we have also corrected that finding as well.
All right, any questions for Tina? Thanks for managing that.
Thank you.
I know you had fun with that.
I did. I had a blast with that, Andy.
All right, the next item we have is our public library summer program. Mr. Franco.
We would love to see every student at Franklin Schools participating in this course. Keeping kids reading and learning all summer is important to help prevent learning loss and combat the summer slide. From May 15th to July 31st, students can register to participate in our free Explore Summer program. Reading, completing learning challenges, attending programs, and earning fun prizes. In 2022, we had over 5,000 people participate in this program, and we're hoping to see even larger numbers this summer to help surpass our reading goal of 3 million units. In addition to the great prizes students can earn just by reading, we'll be doing lots of exciting programming in the library, as well as outreach stops in your communities. Look for the library at the various farmers markets, the county fair, and festivals throughout the year. This May, we will welcome 2 New York Times best-selling authors, Angela Angobi, an award-winning young adult author of Firekeeper's Daughter, and Jack Carr, a former Navy SEAL and the author of The Terminal List, which is now a hit Amazon series starring Chris Pratt. Explore Summer kicks off with live sharks visiting all 4 locations, as Newport Aquarium brings their animal education program to Johnson County Public Library. The Wonder Lab will provide fun STEAM programs in June, and teens can have fun in Random Fandom, where we'll have cosplay contests, superhero character visits, and an author panel. Children's book character Lyle Crocodile will visit and celebrate the end of Explore Summer with pool parties at the Franklin Parks and Recreation. Watch for a community movie night at the Art Craft Theater when we hit our summer reading goal of 3 million units. Anyone can register for the program by going to a library branch or downloading the BeanStack app from the library's website. I hope you all will sign up too, and will encourage your students to participate as well. Thank you for your time today and for helping us spread the word about the Explore Summer program. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to our next item is our action items. No public comments, all right. We'll move to the first item, which is our ROTC program here for Franklin High School.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Today I'm pleased to introduce also Lieutenant Colonel Kopp, who's with us, and little history here. On Veterans Day at the middle school, he was the keynote speaker that Mrs. Holman brought in. He's also a Needham Elementary parent, so he's a bulldog by heart at this space. But he also oversees the Indiana ROTC program in one of his duties. And so we started talking about our strategic plan that we created, about an opportunity to maybe have this come to our school. So over the past several months, we have put forth conversation and moving forward to application. And so tonight, I would like to ask the board to formally approve us to enter application for the JROTC program. Ms. Campbell, if you could please click on the website there to give an overview of the curriculum. And I know a lot of people think about it, and I thought this, when you bring an ROTC program, it's a recruiting tool for the Army. And actually, that's not their mission. Their mission is to create better citizens and better students. And that fits quite well with our individual student growth goal. And so you'll see before us the curriculum opportunities that they provide. And there are a few things that we would be required to do, and that would be to employ 2 people that are usually retired officers. And they would come in and be on our campus at the high school. It's open to 9th through 12th graders with a lot of exposure and leadership. I'll stop right now and turn over to Lieutenant Kopp to share, Lieutenant Colonel Kopp to share anything else that he'd like to add at this point.
Simply a numbers game. The students that participate in JROTC
think the only question I have is when you've started these new programs, what in that first year or maybe the first 5 years, what's that measure of success that we ought to start looking at, watching out for?
That's a very good question. Eventually, the program would like to see somewhere in the neighborhoods of 10% of the student population participate in the JROTC program. We understand, and the Army understands that that's not a turnkey kind of thing, and that will take growth. But eventually, either 10% of the population, or I think in the literature it says something like 100 to 200 students, give or take, if I'm not mistaken on that. But again, the Army's paying a bill on it. They want to see success with that. As the instructors, military folks, it would be incumbent upon them to make sure that happens. And build a career program. One of the things that military people need to expand. So I think the people that you guys would end up hiring would push that. And the programs that I've seen across Indiana, by and large, are incredibly successful. We have a great parent base here already, which helps with that creating a citizen thing. And by and large, I would say that the programs are successful.
I'd also like to highlight extracurricular opportunities that the students would get. Ms. Campbell, if you could go to the About JROTC on the website, and if you go down to national events, you can just hover right there. Those are several opportunities that our students could be involved in. I know Lieutenant Colonel Kopp and I spoke about the air rifle opportunities that the students would have. Also, drill team. The national drill team is where they present the color guard and different events, and we could see that even here at a board meeting or at all of the ball games and things like that. So a lot of opportunities that our kids could do beyond the classroom to highlight that, and then that fitness aspect as well. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. I think it does fit well with our community, with Atterbury just to the south of us. Back in 2017-18, we looked at this earlier. At that point in time, there's a long backlog. There's been an initiative shift to try to get more programs, more schools involved. And fortunate for us, we do have someone who knows a lot about that in our community. And so at this time, I would like to see the board formally approve the application process. This would be for the 24-25 school year, because next year, with the pipeline and everything, we may start some things. It's called the STAR program, and they may come into a leadership class with Mr. Powers or some other opportunity to get some of the early recruitment in for the kids, but the official first class would be in the school year 24-25.
Any questions? All right, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, now I'm going to stop our normal board meeting, and we're going to turn it over and open up a public hearing for our bus replacement system. So with that, I'll turn it over to Roger. Are you helping us with that, or is that Tina?
I can assist, but I think Ms. Gross is the one that would provide the information so that the public will know what the contents of the plan are, and then they can voice their opinion if they have any.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to rewind a little bit for Mr. Sappenfield's benefit. We started this journey in the fall of 2021 when we entered into a lease-to-own agreement for 15 buses for around $1.7 million. We issued a PO for that amount to McAllister's in December of 21, and then in May of 22, McAllister's came back to us and said, well, we have your PO, but we're going to increase each bus by $8,500 due to COVID issues, and named force majeure as a reasoning for that. So at that point, we had three options. We could cancel the order without penalty, we could accept the price increase, or we could reduce the order by one bus to keep the amount within the loan funds that we had. At that point, we decided to go ahead and accept the price increase. We really needed the 15 buses. I did find out that other districts were affected by this, but unfortunately, we had the largest order that was affected. Mr. Young has helped us to bring this to the attention of the Attorney General, but no, we haven't gotten any kind of resolution so far, but I don't think it's over. Is that true, Mr. Young?
Yeah, I might add, we accepted their price increase under protest, so having done that does not waive our rights. When we looked at this, and there's another law firm that's involved as well, these buses are purchased through a purchasing trust, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they represent a number of school corporations. What they do is go out and get bids from various bus manufacturers, and they get the lowest because they're representing a number of school corporations. They get a bid. Supposedly it's firm for a year, and then school corporations that need buses order their buses through this purchasing agreement. So we took a close look at this, and the reasons the manufacturer was using to try and justify the cost increase. And without going into great detail, it was our opinion that none of those reasons were genuine, and that they were all essentially illusory, excuse me, and basically just trying to hide the fact that the manufacturer wanted to make a greater profit. So we believed that that could very well be considered a deceptive practice under Indiana law. And if so, this would give the Attorney General jurisdiction to investigate the matter and take appropriate action. We were able to get Attorney General Rokita to accept this matter, and there is an ongoing investigation. Having worked for the Attorney General, and also having been recently advised by one of his deputies, these investigations can take a long time. So the fact that we haven't heard anything for a few months really doesn't mean the matter's dead or that it's not going to go anywhere. It takes a while. The Attorney General's office, as you can expect and would hope, are quite thorough on these matters. So that's where it stands. It's still under investigation. We hope for a good outcome.
Thank you. So the revised bus replacement plan that you have in front of you reflects the change in pricing. Plus, we changed the buses that would be traded in, depending on mechanical issues that came up in the last 18 months or so. We traded 10 buses in, and that gave us a credit of $14,000. So where we are now is we received the last bus last week, and we've exhausted our loan funds. So the revised bus plan calls for us to make that final payment out of our operating funds to cover that final bus. So we will make that payment from the operating fund balance. And so I am requesting the board's approval on the revised bus replacement plan for 23.
So do I have any public comments on that? Seeing none, do I have a motion from the board?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion passes. So we'll close the public hearing for the bus replacement, and that will open a public hearing for an additional appropriation.
Okay, so this is a request for additional appropriation for us to be able to make that payment out of the operating fund balance. When we developed the 23 budget, we only accounted for those loan payments, so we don't have a line item for paying for a bus directly. So I am requesting that the board approve $136,000 in bus replacement line item to make a direct payment for that final bus.
Open it up. Is there any public comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion from the board?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, respond with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. So with that, we will close that public hearing, and we'll resume the school board meeting. So the next action item I have on the school board meeting is the Northwood HVAC contract. Mr. Sewell or
As
Dr.
Mr. Sewell walks up here, just want to talk a little bit about some logistics. As you're seeing these two contracts being added late, we're at the mercy of our partners, and they're not getting them in timely. And since we only meet once a month, and in the next few months, you may see this same thing happen. But because of the cost being so high for a lot of these, I don't feel comfortable just having Becky come in and sign, or myself sign, and then doing it the next board meeting. So we may have a little lag here. Mr. Sewell is working with our partners and saying, listen, here's our board deadline, here's when we need it in. But with materials and everything, if we delay another 30 days, that also puts us back. So we're a little bit in a crunch here, but I wanted to let you know we are truly aware of this, and we are working with our partners to make an expedient turnaround on their things so that we can get contracts to Mr. Young, so that we can get everything moving forward to get the materials as we head into the summer and early fall. Mr. Sewell.
What's the timing on the replacement of this system?
It's going to have to take place in 2 phases because of the lead time on equipment. We're in a very tight lead time to get all of the classroom pumps, storage, and the boiler storage design for that work to be due this summer. There are some outside air units that are have a longer lead time, and those will have to wait until this summer.
Okay. Right, is there any public comments? I forgot to ask, sorry. Okay, any board comments? Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. So we'll then move to the Creekside HVAC. Yeah. Timing the same? All right. All right. Any questions? Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. All right. With that, we'll move to the next section on our agenda, the discussion section. And the first item we have is the elementary handbooks. Dr. Hayden.
Thank you. As a discussion item tonight, we have before you our proposed elementary school handbooks.
think, Dr. Hayden, the only question I had, was there any lessons learned we had from the COVID on the use of our electronics, the Chromebooks and that we need to change or we need to update?
Yeah, right now the AEP with the document practice technology is not changing at this moment. It still is relevant and in place. We've been working internally on Chromebook, new technology standards and also what grade levels should have Chromebooks at home, that sort of thing. But we've not made any decisions that we need to be making. These are mostly things that we would do for classroom teachers.
Okay, thank you.
I would also like to note that you may see a late insert on transportation. We are working on that. We receive buses. All the buses that Tina talked about have seat belts, and we are requiring our elementary students to wear the seat belt, and so we're working on that documentation. We went out to notification of parents this time, but for next school year, there will be an insert added. We couldn't get all the wording in right now, but we will get that in, and that will become part of the handbook. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. All right, the next item that we have is our Advanced College Project, an FCS partnership. Any questions? Thank you for bringing that. Okay, the next one is our resolution for 1003 waiver.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lamb. Steve A. House, principal at the high school, and Rita Holman, principal at the middle school, and I are asking permission to submit an application to the state board for a 1003 waiver. And this waiver would apply to Indiana Code 2032-2, which measures instructional time at the secondary level by hours per day. We would like to adjust that measurement to hours per week. A number of schools have already asked for this particular type of waiver. What that does is when we count hours per week, we're actually 2 hours over the state minimum. That would then allow us to pull 15 minutes from that time to add to our PLC time for our secondary staff to give them the same 45 minutes that we have at the K through 6 level for their collaborative time to discuss data, standards alignment, student mastery, those particular items that are part of, again, our strategic plan. So right now what we're asking for is permission to submit the waiver. The state board would still have to approve the waiver. questions.
You said a number of schools are doing this, so
They've offered this waiver, Jake, for about the last, 2-3 years. We've never submitted one, but we're finding, we've been running the high school PLCs at 30 minutes, and the feedback we're receiving from the admin team and the teachers is that it's just not enough time, and it is inconsistent with the rest of the district. So to make them consistent, we have to adjust both the middle school and the high school because of how we bus our students into the district. So it would impact the entire secondary staff. No impact on K through 6.
And will this make any kind of impact on the time that school starts or ends or anything like that?
So the high school and the middle school would start 15 minutes later on Thursday. So that would be the only impact. No other buildings would be impacted, and no impact to the end of the day schedule. The application is due to the state board April 28th. So I would like to add it as an action item on the April 24th joint meeting with the city council.
Okay. Any questions? All right, then the next item we have is our final forms agreement for the athletic participation. Mr. Doty.
This is really, we will eventually be seeking approval to enter an agreement for a new vendor. Current vendor is ranked 1 for our student database for our athletic department. We would like to switch to forms, web-based application. Our database for athletic department basically houses our eligible requirements. Rosters, awards, things of that nature. The new final forms is just more user-friendly for the athletic department and athletic administrators, probably more simple for coaches. It also allows for the platform and dashboard for the coaches to see, also for the parents to see and receive their notifications, and then also all other restrictions that we like to do. So the cost, the annual cost is $4 per roster student, which is right around really no change there. It's just from a user standpoint for athletic administrators and coaches. That's really what it's about. So I have to answer any questions that is.
I guess no question for me. A request I would have, if you would make sure that you run this by Mr. Sprout from a cyber review. Make sure that there's multi-factor authentication on the login. You know, with the personal information that's going to be on that website, let's make sure that it's protected. You know, with the threats that we're seeing on the rise, let's make sure that our students' data is protected, that we're not, you know, putting it out there. And he can review that and let you know. Thank you.
And Mr. Young did look at this document, I believe.
All right, the next item we have is our Care Solace Services Agreement.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lamb. We are coming to the board in May then and asking to pilot this resource in August, September, and October. It's not a resource we currently have. Mr. Young has looked at the agreement, has had no questions or concerns with the agreement. I will let Kim, Mrs. Sperling, talk a little bit about what this resource is, but the dollars that we would use to cover this particular resource would come from the safety and mental health component of the referendum. We already have dollars that are earmarked for Suite 360, which is a resource we are not renewing. So these would replace those dollars in the existing budget. Kim, thank you.
All of which have a negative
Questions?
Yeah, how would you anticipate kids getting access? Would it be like a voluntary program or placement, or how would that work?
So what will happen is there will be a link on the district's website.
Okay.
And that link will, it's very, very user-friendly, very, very interactive. And that link will guide them through it. So if it's a student who's researching for mental health providers, or if it's a family member, or if it's a staff member, you're going to choose that option. And then from there, you're going to ask, certain questions to help identify what the next step should be. So it is a voluntary-based program. Again, it's just helping connect those mental health providers and those substance use providers to students and staff.
And did you hit the staff wellness piece? Could you mention that just a little bit more? Because that's one of the areas we're seeing that our staff and our AEP and some things that happen, we don't have a good connecting piece. Kim runs around trying to connect everybody, her team tries to help, but we're missing that part. So they are going to do the very same thing for our adults, is that correct?
Absolutely. So staff, again, can connect on that district website link and fill out the information as far as what they're looking for. The great part about this is we can actually, so let's say a staff member reaches out to me, which happens quite often for mental health support. And I also had a lot of requests for family in regards to substance abuse support. So where do they go? So again, they can log on, they can click, they can answer some questions, and they're going to get connected with the mental health support. The good thing is the care companion is going to work alongside our staff to ensure that they get a scheduled appointment, to ensure that they get a scheduled intake. And they, by having them set up all of that, they will then provide the top 3 resources available, for them. So they don't overwhelm staff or students with a long list. So it's these 3, we can get you in on this date, we can get you on this date, we can get you on this date, which one works best for you. And that can help wonders because our current AEP program is a 1-800 number they can call, and it is not user-friendly. It takes a very, very long time to connect staff with providers, and they work very hard to connect an individual with a provider within a week or less, which is just phenomenal because we have a lot of, issues with that because it takes a very long time to call all the different providers and find out who's available.
So I was going to ask, what is today's protocol, but it's a 1-800 number. It sounds like a lot of times. Okay.
And somebody, and again, they ask those questions, but they don't know our resources here locally. And here's Solace, they work really hard to say, here's the list of providers that we have available. Do you see any gaps? So we then can say, hey, we work with X, Y, and Z community providers. I can then reach out to them and encourage them to sign up with Care Solace. No providers get paid to link with Care Solace, so nobody's making money off of that. But what it does is it gives our students and staff more opportunities to be able to have more providers to search for.
And so you said that this was, like that, if, let's say they didn't want to go through you, they could just click on the website and it's anonymous and like they would feel safe that maybe their work, maybe workers don't want you to know. So.
So if they choose not to go through me or choose not to go to a school counselor or mental support team at private, they can absolutely log in and follow the whole process confidentially. We do not get notified that a staff member is utilizing this. We will see a roster, we will see numbers that say this is how many staff members access the site, but we don't see any details whatsoever. It's completely confidential.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, our next item is the enrollment study at the Indiana Business Research Center.
Yes, so if you recall, Dr. Susan Brodbig did a study for us and presented to the board a little over a year ago. And she used demographic information and planning information to estimate our enrollment growth over the next 10 years. But she did this on a district-wide level. And I think Mr. Lamb asked the question at the time, can we get this information by building? And her response was no. I think because she didn't have the capacity at the time to drill deeper into that. So for that reason, I reached out to a group through IU called Indiana Business Research Center and asked them if they would be ready and willing to dig a little deeper into the detail of that, and they indeed will. They'll look at our past demographic trends and populations by age, that sort of thing. They will contact the city planners to determine what housing projects are in the queue, enrollment histories, things like that. So they'll be able to tell us exactly what building we're going to see growth in. And this is going to be so important over the next few months and actually several years to kind of lay out our long-term facility plan. We're meeting on Friday to kind of kick those discussions off, but it's going to be important for us to know exactly where the growth is going to be and what buildings we will need to prioritize, with upgrades, renovations, and maybe even new construction. So before you have a proposal from the Indiana Business Research Center. The cost of the study will be $25,000, but it will give us that information we need to make informed and educated decisions going forward about facility projects and about our borrowing capacity over the next few years. So I feel like this is a wise investment of our funds to do this due diligence step, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I do plan to come back in at the April 25th meeting and get the board's approval on this agreement.
Thank you. Any questions for Tina? I'm
Yeah.
excited to see that
This
data.
will be a good study.
Yep. All right, next item that we have is the refunding of the Series 2013 bonds.
Did you guys notice that Tina is the good news person today?
Well, anything finance is good news, right?
I'm making stuff happen.
Exactly. Congrats. Usually it's like, well, I got bad news now. But it's good news.
It is positive. Maybe the bus replacement piece, but it is final. So at our February board retreat, Baker Tilly introduced the topic of refinancing for our 2013 bonds, that we would have that option coming up. And at the time, the interest rates were a little lower than what they are now. So I think at the time they had estimated our savings to be about $200,000. If we refinance today, it would be about $150,000, and then at 3%, it'd be about $100,000. And this would reduce our debt service payment at the end of 2026. So the timeline that you have before you is just an example of what it would look like if and when we decide to do this. So what I'm asking for today is if you approve conceptually that it might be a good idea for us to go through the refunding process, then that would authorize me to work with Baker Tilly and Ice Miller to determine the best time to begin that process based on interest rates. So it could be, starting in May, it could be later in the year, but I'm seeking the board's thoughts on whether or not this would be a good investment of time. It does look about the same as borrowing $17 million like we did a few months ago. The process doesn't really change based on dollar amounts or anything like that. So I guess I feel like if we can save $100,000 on a debt service payment, then that would be the responsible thing to do.
I guess adding to that, and I agree, saving that money is the right thing to do, but it also helps us on that facility planning.
It does.
If we can reduce our debt service.
It does.
So we know when we get that data and we know by building and we can focus on what building needs to increase or change, right? Then we've got more capacity to make that change.
Exactly. We'll have more borrowing capacity
Right.
at that point.
Tina, at what point can you lock in your interest rate? When do you know that during this process?
Baker Tilly will advise us on when the best time to lock into that would be.
Yeah, I think the interest rate's locked in when the bonds are sold.
As they exist now, yes. But then if we refund, then it would be whatever the interest rate at that time.
And that's a net savings after fees and everything, that
Yes.
100,000. Yeah.
And you know, the according to Baker Tilly, the rule of thumb is shooting to a 3% savings in, like, the bond payment for this is $7.2 million. So 3% of that would be about $215,000. So you could use that rule of thumb. You know, if we're not going to save at least that much, we're not going to go through the process. But I guess my sentiment is if we can open up $100,000 in borrowing capability, why wouldn't we do that? And we could also reduce the tax rate as well.
I think it's worth investigating.
Okay. I will work with Baker Tilly and Ice Miller on what that might look like over the next few months and keep the board updated on that progress.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, do we have any public comments for this section? Seeing none, we'll move into then the board administrative comments. Any comments from the board? No, Dr. Clendenning?
Yeah, just want to remind everybody, on the 24th, we are back in the auditorium for joint city council school board meeting, and the three of us will sit down in the audience so that we can have enough room for everybody on the city council and the school board. Also, want to announce that we are making plans. Japan opened up travel, and so a few years ago, we had the opportunity to take a group of kids, and that is before us again. So on the 24th, I'm going to be bringing more information, but it looks like right now they're looking at October fall break time. Mrs. Betts and I looked at the people that were still eligible from the last time. I think we have about 19 students that went through the application process that met the criteria at least to apply. So we're going to contact their families and those students to see if they're still interested, as well as some of the 8th and 9th graders that would have been too young to apply previous. So that's going to be an exciting trip. And on the 24th, we're going to hear about our trip to Europe from Dr. Warland and the 14 students that got to go. So we're excited about that. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that opportunity and travel exposure for our students again. Anything else?
I also have one comment, or one thing to share. This group has talked a lot about delinquent lunch accounts, and we have a group in Johnson County that has kind of come together and gained some traction around this topic. And so they've reached out to each of the county schools to develop a process for making those kind of donations. They're very active on Facebook, so every time a post goes out about student lunches, there are always a lot of comments. So now there's a place on our Franklin Education Connection website where people can go out and donate to those funds online. So FranklinEducationConnection.org, and there's a donate button that you can click on.
Nice. Good job on that. All right, let's move to the calendar.
Just a couple updates. We do have the prom coming up on April 21st. Also on April 21st, we have an e-learning day where all the students will be at home. Teachers will also be doing staff development. I think we have Hands on Autism coming in to highlight that exposure for staff. Senior projects are also April the 21st. And we have about 120 is what I heard this next time through. Is that right, Laura? Yep. And so that's another great opportunity for our kids. End of the year banquet is May 1st, where we're announcing support staff of the year, teacher of the year, and also retirees. And then graduation Saturday, May 20th at 10. I did talk to President Nelson, and I think what we're going to do is still go back to alphabetical order on the handing out of the diplomas, and then we'll look at which student group that you find the most kids that match up to you want to give their diploma, and put you in that group. And then if there is anyone extra that you do want to do, we'll have you rotate up like we did last year. One thing I think we're working on is to try to get you back on the stage, to expand the stage a little bit more, so the board would be on the stage as we're outside. And just like we had in the past, if it rains, we'll continue to try to get it done during the day as late as possible, even in the evening. So the rain date is still basically the same day on that Saturday, and then we would go into Sunday if we had to.
So is the prom and the senior project day, are those days correct?
Those days are incorrect. It is April 21st.
Okay.
For the prom and senior project, so we'll get that corrected.
You're cracking the whip there, making them go on a Sunday.
I know it. Yeah, we want to do that. Yeah. But no, the prom is coming up in April.
Okay.
Back to normal.
Any questions on the calendar? Well, with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.